Hi, I'm Ross. For the past several months, I've been working on a campaign to stop the destruction of video games. See, most video games work indefinitely, and yeah, that's pretty much it. But more and more are being designed to stop working the second support ends from the publisher. A kill switch, essentially. It's a form of planned obsolescence, where publishers are destroying games they've already sold to you, but keeping your money. And this is all preventable. Some people don't understand that. I've compared this before to studios from a century ago burning their own films after they were done showing them to recover the silver content. And now most films of that era are gone forever. That's very similar to what's happening to video games today. It's just a terrible practice for everyone involved. Now, most of my efforts have gone towards challenging the legality of this practice in various countries, because it's so consumer hostile, it's not clear if what's going on is even legal. That's still ongoing, but now we have a new option, proposing new law, and for the entire European Union. It took months to get put together and processed, but now we have a European Citizens Initiative devoted to halting the destruction of video games. You can read it yourself. This would require publishers to leave games they have sold to customers in a working state at the time of shutdown, without requiring any further connection to them or affiliated parties for the games to function. How they would do this would be up to them. This would also apply to free-to-play games that contain microtransactions. Because if you purchased a microtransaction as a good, then the game is made unplayable, well then you just lost your goods. This would not require publishers to give up any of their intellectual property rights, give up their source code, though that one would still be nice. It wouldn't require endless support. They can end it anytime they want as far as we're concerned. They wouldn't need to host servers, though they would have to either patch out that requirement or else allow customers to host them privately. Assume any liability for what customers do with their copies of games. And finally, nothing about this initiative would have any impact on publisher business practices while the game is being supported. In other words, publishers can continue doing whatever they want, as long as you get to keep your game. It amazes me when some people say that's going too far in favor of the consumer. Though to be fair, that's probably not most Europeans. The idea here is we're just trying to stop games from being destroyed. That's it. So we're taking as narrow an approach as possible that still solves the problem. If we get enough signatures, then this goes before the European Union to be considered as new law. Now, if you're on board with this, you don't have to keep watching. You can go sign it right now. But wait, before you do, you have one chance to do this right. It's not hard, but if you make a mistake, your signature is invalidated and you don't get another chance. We've made guides at StopKillingGames.com on how to do this, just in case. But is this as simple as people sign this and it becomes law in the EU? Yeah, it might be. Now, it's not a guarantee, but I think if we get the signatures, this passes. Why do I say that? Well, it's a few factors. Politicians like easy wins, and this doesn't require them to do much at all. And unless it involves gambling or protecting children, politicians generally don't care about video games. So this isn't of big consequence to them or most of their constituencies. EU law is already unclear on a lot of this practice anyway, and we would be making it easy for them to settle it. It falls in line with other consumer practices. You know how when you buy something, you're generally allowed to keep it? And finally, this is a diversion from really serious topics that politicians would prefer not to deal with. This would let them stay busy and avoid hard stuff. In fact, I would bet if we can clear the signature threshold, this passes into law and we solve the problem 90% or more. I say 90% because this would only impact the EU. So if a game was released only in China or Japan, yeah, this wouldn't save those. But most video games are sold globally, and the EU is part of that. Once it's a requirement that companies have to let you keep the games they sold to you in a major market like that, I think it spreads, whether it's the law elsewhere or not. Now, unfortunately, what I would not bet on, because it's a huge unknown, is whether we can pass that signature threshold to begin with. In order for this to work, we need 1 million signatures across the EU. Though really, it's more than that, because some are going to be invalidated because Who knows why? So really, we need more like 1.2 or 1.3 million signatures. Oh, and it gets worse, because you need certain minimum thresholds per country for it to pass. So say somebody signs it in Greece. Well, then we need almost 15,000 more Greeks to sign it, otherwise none of the Greek signatures count. That rule strikes me as rather obtuse and awkward. I almost wonder if the EU took a page from the United States for that one. Anyway, that's a lot of signatures. I might be delusional for attempting this. I don't know yet. Now, the good news is we have 1 year to get them all, so we will have time. Although I'll say right now, there is no way I can get that many Europeans just from my audience. The only way this works is by reaching out to European YouTubers and streamers and so on to get on board, and non-English speaking ones at that. Now, I'll do my part and promote this the best I can, but I have limited reach. In fact, since I've started Stop Killing Games, I want to say everyone I've reached out to never responded. So me reaching out doesn't work. It's a total failure rate. However, there are 2 things that did work. One is people reaching out to me, since I respond to a lot. And 2 is people just covering this on their own. That really worked. Which means if you're watching this, you may be a critical link in all this. Because you can tell other YouTubers, streamers, etc. about this initiative, and maybe they'll pick it up. And again, it's even better if their core audience is non-English speaking. The number of native English speakers in the EU is relatively small, so we need to connect the dots in other languages the best we can. Now, I'm offering myself for interviews, publicity on this issue, whatever, to almost anyone with a European audience of some size. In addition to that, the official spokesperson and backup spokesperson for the initiative have offered to speak on this also. And they are multilingual. And we have a few more official organizers who may be willing to discuss this in other languages as well. These are the people officially in charge. You know, actual Europeans. Yeah, even though I've helped, officially, I'm not a part of this. I'm not eligible. Doesn't matter. Whatever gets us to the finish line. And speaking of eligibility, it's pretty simple. You need to be a citizen of an EU country, though you don't have to live there, and you need to be at least voting age. That's it. This also means it's not just you who can sign this, but your friends can sign this. Your family can sign this. Girlfriends, boyfriends can sign this. They all count. Get everybody. And tell them to get people to sign too. And yes, it feels weird that I'm an ineligible American campaigning for Europeans to sign a document. But you know what? If it passes, we all win. So we just have to go to where the openings are. Oh, and if your relatives or whoever don't care about video games, you can explain to them this is also about not losing basic ownership. Like if video games were cars, what's happening now would be like if I sold you a car at full price, then later, and I wouldn't tell you how much later, so it's not a rental, I then came to your house and repossessed your car. But I also kept your money. That is not good business. Or not for the consumer anyway. Yeah, I guess taking back what you've sold is great for businesses. Maybe that's why the industry is worth more than movies and music combined. I get it. Video games aren't that important to most people. But because of that, they're the canary in the coal mine. What about farm equipment, education tools, medical devices? You do not want this practice spreading to other areas, believe me. The one thing I want to say is some of you have already done the math and realized we need an average of over 2,700 signatures a day in order to make this work. I'll say right now, we're not going to get that many every day. This stuff happens in waves as big people pick it up. Plenty of days will be below par, but others could be 10 times or higher. So don't write this off too early. Don't be that guy I've seen in team games who gives up at the slightest sign of resistance and calls it game over 30 seconds into the match. I hate that crap. I think we're at a crossroads. If we can get enough signatures, then I think we end this and change gaming history. Or we can't get our act together and the problem gets worse and worse, then in the future, we really don't own anything. And we're charged a lot for not owning anything. Now maybe we get lucky and this is redundant due to all the other legal challenges we have going, But either way, this is it for your chance to save games. There's not going to be a round 2. If you or someone you know is an EU citizen, you have the power to end this just by signing a form. Though this plan may have a critical weakness, in that I'm counting on gamers to care about not seeing their games destroyed. I hope that's not too big an ask. Because years from now, somebody could be saying, yeah, I had the chance to save gaming, but it required me to open up a whole new tab in my browser and fill in my name and a CAPTCHA? Oh my god. So I didn't do it. It was just too much work. It wasn't worth it. If that's the general sentiment among gamers, then yeah, I can't overcome that. Then I'm Don Quixote here fighting windmills. I hope that's not the case. So, yeah, go sign it or tell somebody European about it. Oh, and this doesn't have to take a year. If we get way more signatures than we need, we can end it early. So you can speedrun this.